comics are really interesting because every single one of them is different. There's so many different universes, different canons, different headcanons, different timelines, what ifs. There's so much out there. If you try to follow every single comic out there, you'd faint. You'd die. It's impossible. I'm sorry, it's impossible. Like, I have a list of every single Teen Titans comic of one storyline. It's 5 volumes for one storyline. Too much. Simply too much. But um I want to get into like the some stuff, and then I'll be a bit more specific with everything. So one big thing I think is important to mention is the role of young girls in comics, right? So I'm thinking specifically about Batgirl. And this is a problem that happens consistently for some reason with the Bat family. But so in Batman Beyond, number uh you see Barbara Gordon, who in this universe, right? Keep it in here. This is the box it's in. It's right there in that little box, okay? In this universe, Bruce has known Barbara Gordon, Batgirl Oracle, we talked about her earlier. He's known her since she was 14 because he's friends with the Commissioner James Gordon or Jim Gordon. Depends. And she's purposely aged down in the series to date Robin, to date Dick Grayson, the first Robin. And he falls in love with her immediately. And they start dating. And then uh Dick Grayson, Robin, has an argument with Bruce, and he decides to leave and head to Bloodhaven and become Nightwing to live his own life, which involves breaking up with Barbara because it's just long distance stuff. It's just not gonna work for them. Fine, whatever, that's good for them. On one mission, Barbara is back, and she's helping Batman. They go onto the rooftop, looking on a bit of a stakeout. Then they make out. They have intercourse. Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne, this 30-something-year-old man, has sex with an 18-year-old girl who he's known since she was 14. Who was dating his son? His son! What? And this happens multiple times in comic books, right? Like Talia al Ghul had, raped Batman, right? But she also had sex with Jason Todd, the technically third, but second Robin. Um, and it also happened with Catwoman, where Bruce had sex with her all the time in so many comic books. And then also Dick had sex with her, And it's just, what? Where is this coming from? Because the blame isn't on the guys for doing this stuff. The blame is on the women. Because they're knowingly in relationships and they still do this stuff. So the blame just goes onto them. And it's one thing like with certain runs, right, where it's like it is an interesting story here because cheating storylines are can be interesting. They can be executed well, right? Forgiveness through that through that is so important because so many things in DC are forgotten and not final. And so it's interesting to go into these types of stories, right? Uh, Especially with Dick and Jason. Talia and Selena had known them since they were kids, like 13, 14. So this is all like crazy grooming stuff. Crazy. And, for me, one really big symbol of this, I will go into another character next, but like a second really big character for me in this type of stuff is Supergirl. Kara Zor-El. Now, she, um, she was initially introduced, I think, 2 years or so after Superman was, and she was Kara Danvers. She had her normal storyline, right? Somewhere along the line, she had this like she's had weird storylines. Everyone has. Became Power Girl for a second. Um, and Power Girl, when she was first drawn up by artist Wally Wood in various comics, he felt the editors weren't paying enough attention. So he kept drawing in every issue her breasts bigger and bigger and bigger until they looked absurd, and the editors actually talked about it. And at that point, they decided to change her costume that was like a white dress and everything to a one piece with a big cut up right here. And they decided to make her have like she has a whole panel of a bullet hitting her chest and just bouncing off. What? What? Like, okay. Oh my gosh, I need to find my script because this is really interesting to me. Um, there's specifically within like comics, there's so many different stories, different reasons and stuff. I will say the Batgirl one's also crazy because she ends up getting pregnant with Bruce's baby, and then Bruce is like, "You have to tell Dick," and she goes, "Okay," and she goes on a walk, and then he just tells Dick when she's on that walk, less than 24 hours later, and then she has a miscarriage after fighting someone, really showing how nothing ever matters. And it's just, sorry, let me find it. Right, okay. I also found something really interesting within characters named woman versus girl. Um, Generally, a lot of characters that are named woman are more likely to be sexualized, like Superwoman, Wonder Woman, Catwoman. We've mentioned those people before. Um, and we talk about like how they're all examples of women that are in incredibly inappropriate costumes consistently for the stuff that they wear. While Batgirl, Wonder Girl, Supergirl, they tend to be in more innocent, fully covered outfits, right? So I think that it's really important to mention the history of some costumes and how they've evolved, right? So it depends on what you're reading. But Donna Troy, Wonder Girl, initially started out with a tank top and blue shorts, red tank top, blue shorts to match Wonder Woman. But as the stories went on, she went into like a full black bodysuit with like white stars on it, and you see Supergirl who gets to have her like skirt and top and everything that's more modest compared to like other ones, and Batgirl who's in like pretty protective stuff. There's also like a lot of stuff with like Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman was initially introduced to be different from the heteronormative standard that was set by Superman, because Superman was made he was made from two Canadian guys who were like, let's just make the perfect guy who like has none of our insecurities and is like literally amazing. Just for like a joke. Um, but they do that and then they make Wonder Woman to like oppose those things, right? But then all of a sudden, the only time she's shown in coverage for a bit, or like the most prominent way she's shown, is in bondage within her like with her rope. And there's one panel, I can't remember what comic it's from. It's from the Golden Age, so it's like 40s or 50s, where she's kidnapped. She's crying. She's not crying because she can't escape. Okay, they like change her bracelets together, right? She's crying because they ruined her jewelry. You're saying the Amazonian warrior, Amazonian princess, Diana Prince, was crying because they ruined her bracelets. That's fair, family heirloom. But like, no, that's not okay. And there is also this comic run in the 1990s that included the Nightfall of Batman and the Death of Superman, which are stories about heroes. It's just like what ifs of them. So it's like the absolute universe, where like in absolute universe, uh Wonder Woman instead was made in hell and raised by Circe rather than the Amazonians. You're never gonna guess her storyline that they made. They they were trying to figure out, okay, we have Nightfall of Batman, the death of Superman. What should we do? Um, and what ends up happening is they're in this executive meeting, right? Big, stiff, serious meeting. And some guy offers us a joke. What if we did a story about one woman getting raped? Can you guess what they said? The executives loved it. And then they started brainstorming on this idea. Um, and made an artist draw the first page of it, and it was meant to be like a 22-page comic book about her getting gang raped. And the only reason that that storyline was scrapped was because there were too many sexual assault allegations that were happening within the DC community about the writers and artists in the rooms. What? And all of this just to say, what? What's going on? You know? And even going down to just the bare minimum of costumes, right? When you think of costumes, you think of an iconic thing that someone wears, right? Maybe you think about Joker and his purple suit. You think about Superman and his blue stuff, his red underwear over top, all that jazz. But I notice, especially within games, that there tends to be less consistency when it comes to women. Every single time that they're in a new run, they have to change their outfit. They have to look different. Whereas the males tend to look pretty similar. Like all of my over 20 Funko Pops of Harley Quinn are her in different costumes. In every single Arkham game, she's in a completely different outfit. The same goes for Gotham Knights and for Suicide Squad, where she's just in different outfits. Wonder Woman. I talked about how she changed, right? I talked briefly about it, but it did happen. Where just they all change all the time. They don't have a single thing that stays consistent about them. And it it's interesting, at least for me. I'm gonna put my mic down. It's interesting for me to see these things as an avid comic fan, right? Because I once identified as a woman, and I know that I'm very femme presenting because I'm femme born. Um, and when I first started to look up to heroes, when I first started like learning about them, reading comics, playing games, watching shows, they always stood for something, right? And you know how you know? Because of the emblem on their chest. It always stands for something more. You have Aquaman, who has even it's not on there, but it's on his like belt, the symbol for Atlantis, because that's his kingdom, that's where he's from. He represents those people. It shows his nobility, and it shows that he has a role above just being a crime fighter. You have Green Lantern, who his symbol is the symbol for the Green Lanterns, the planet Oa. They symbolize willpower. So him in his costume every day already shows who he is. He is someone with incredible willpower. That's like an incredible part of his character, right? To be a bit more complex with them, you have someone like Superman who wears the S on his chest. Not quite. that S is actually not meant to be an S. It is because it's Superman, the comic books, right? But on Krypton, that symbol is a symbol for the House of El, the family crest of his family, Kal-El's family. So it doesn't just stand for Superman, it also stands for his home and where he comes from. Not only that, but the House of El stands for hope. That's what I was thinking of. So when he goes out there, he is a beacon of hope. He's a proud alien showing his humanity. But you can see that in them, right? You can see how that can mean something more, how they mean something more, because even if you don't know it, when you think of Superman, you probably think of a light, bright metropolis. You think of, you know, this sunny boy who's always smiling. You think of, boy next door type business, right? And you think about Batman, he's not, his symbol is a bat, but not just a bat. Because he became Batman after he overcame his fear of bats, which was his biggest fear. So for him, this symbol is an example of him embracing the fear he had and finding confidence within it, right? And learning to strive in the darkness that bats tend to lurk in, which is an incredible thing to have, especially in Gotham City, where you're literally you're one of the most dangerous cities. Everywhere you're crime ridden. Every day is a struggle for your life. You never know when you're gonna live, who's gonna attack you. They could be part of a gang you never knew of. They could be like someone you offended when you said one off comment. You don't know. And when you see Batman, it shows his embrace of the darkness. He shows people inherently through his um skills and who he is that it's okay to be afraid, but it's finding courage within that fear that drives you. Now, what about the women? Name one logo for a woman and tell me what it means in the DC universe. You probably can't, right? Because sure, there are stuff that could mean more, but they don't. They don't. Catwoman has a little cat thing on her belt sometimes. Other times she has nothing to indicate cat, other than the fact that she's a cat burglar. Whoa, crazy. And, you could see someone like Wonder Woman, who does genuinely have, her own logo, which was the W that she has here. And the thing is, it's become more of a duh, but when it was first introduced, her thing was actually in the shape of, I think it was meant to be an eagle, because she stood up for loyalty, for supporting your men, even when they're lost, making sure their memories aren't forgotten, and continuing to fight so their sacrifices are not made in vain. She represented this idea of freedom and change because she had that eagle on her, right? And I understand that it might be hard for you to see if you're not a comics fan, but if you saw how she acted with people, she's incredibly loyal and incredibly proud of everything and incredibly diplomatic, and she's so many things. But loyalty is her greatest skill. And it sucks for her to have lost that logo because now it's just two W's. That doesn't mean anything to her. Stars don't mean anything to her. It was that eagle that represented something in her. And even like, oh, Batgirl, her logo comes from Batman. Supergirl, her logo comes from Superman, right? And it makes sense to make sure that they all have the same logos, make sure they're part of the same houses, and like make sure that you can tell who's in whose group. But then I ask you something like, what's Harley Quinn's logo? The three diamonds, what do they represent? Nothing. They don't represent anything. You think about Starfire. Nothing on her to indicate what she is as a person, right? And Raven, who is a character I will mention is a teenager and has had the most inappropriate art made about her. Her and Starfire. Her, Starfire, and Harley Quinn, they've had the most inappropriate art made about them. Um, which is disgusting to think about. But where is her logo? Where is that emblem? That emblem is such a strong thing to have. Even like Star Sapphire has one, you know? And that symbolizes love because she's a part of the Pink Lanterns, which symbolize love. So her stuff means something. But in a lot of comics, her whole thing is like just. Which brings on another topic. Where do you see emblems? Where do they go on someone's body? On their chest, right? So when you subconsciously get into people's heads that their emblems and their logo and their other meaning is within this spot on them or this spot or whatever, and all they can see is cleavage with not even a logo. I mean, Wonder Woman's thing, it can be revealing, right? But adding that little thing makes it hers. It makes her more than any revealing costume. And it truly sucks. It truly sucks to see that that purpose, that useful tool to show how someone can wear a costume that is revealing, but still be themselves, and to see that it's gone. Because you got lazy, because you didn't notice the details. Shows how little love you show for comics. Comics are meant to include everyone. They're meant to be beautiful representations of someone, but how can that represent someone when all you see is genuinely just their tits? Because when I see heroes, I do that too, where I look at the emblem, right? It's subconsciously how we process what they represent because that's how comics we've seen them in comics all the time. Even when you think about Marvel, right? Captain America has a star, again for patriotism, again for loyalty, again for his like experiences within the war. Tony Stark reactor, it influenced him to become a hero. I've always found it very interesting how we process media and how we learn to understand stuff like comic books, where it's hard to get that emotion across because you only have like at most like 6 panels to show a million different emotions. And it sucks. I'm reading currently a book that I reference in here. Um I'm currently reading the um super cannot remember the name for it. I will put the name right here. Okay. I've been reading that book and I haven't gotten too far into it, but already there are discussions of these types of things of how comics are so hard to get right because there's such a different mix between art and words and making sure that they all blend to make a perfect story that accurately encapsulates the message behind a comic, behind every single word, behind every single instant of paint and color on those comic books, right? And it sucks to see these types of things and to think that, wow, this medium I love doesn't care for me at all. As Laura Mulvey said in that film theory, all media is inherently voyeuristic. you are always peeping into someone's life. And that's what film, comics, that's what everything is made for you to become the camera. But if you're the camera, think about what this director is wanting from you, what this writer wants from you. What emotions are they trying to pull out of you? Right? We constantly see these types of things where we're constantly being let down because they market stuff as feminism, as progress, as doing good things, and then nothing happens. You're telling me it took an all women, like a mostly women crew to do Birds of Prey, the live action, where they actually liked the women in the cast and supported them? That's how long it took? That's crazy. That's insane. I don't care about about the comic books, right? It's like when we talk about the MCU. A lot of MCU fans don't care about that stuff. They only see the films, right? So how can we think they've made change? To think that everyone in this medium that we love has made progress to become more inclusive, to become more okay with things if they still can't show respect consistently. Think about how much disrespect that shows for your art. You've had this character who started in a jumpsuit, full jumpsuit, full makeup, everything covered. And now she tends to wear just a bomber jacket, a corset, and booty shorts. It especially hurts when it's characters like these where, sure, I don't relate to her because I'm not a psycho killer who's obsessed with people, who's obsessed with the guy and what he thinks of me. But I understand the obsessive need to just be better. I understand her constantly working herself to the bone for one compliment from some guy because he's the only person in her life who actually made her feel seen. I totally understand where she's coming from with that. And I understand all of these women as characters. And I think a lot of them are quite brilliant, you know? And it truly sucks to see just how little they appreciate these characters. I mean, that's not even just for women. We're talking about the sexualization of characters in DC. The men are great victims of this. You never see just an average human anymore in comics. They all have to be super, with super bodies and super behavior. They can't just be. And that's so sad because a part of the relatability behind heroes is that you could see yourself be them, right? The whole idea behind Spider-Man is that anyone could be him. Anyone could be Spider-Man. That's why he's so courageous, so friendly, so kind. That's why everyone loves him, right? But you see characters like Batman, who initially started very compassionate towards villains and very open to understanding that they are all really suffering mentally. And they've all gone through horrible stuff. That doesn't excuse their actions. It gives an idea as to why they might have thought that that was okay, though, right? It gives another perspective to the crimes. That doesn't mean the crimes are okay. That just means that these crimes have happened and we're moving past that and we're going to help adjust with these criminals and help them rehabilitate. But then Christopher Nolan's Batman ruined that because all of a sudden he became this character that just hated villains, who just wanted vengeance, who was just angry and just dark and cold and empty. And that ruined almost every other iteration of Batman I've ever seen in my life. Up until the newest movie, The Batman, where it draws parallels between characters, where it says, hey, none of this is okay. What is the difference between a hero and a villain? And it answers that with compassion. A hero and a villain are different because a hero helps because they are kind, because they are compassionate, because they're human. And the misogyny and sexism within DC Comics has ruined the medium forever because you will never see a human Batman ever again. They'll say he's human. He'll say he bleeds. He'll get bruises. He'll get cuts. And he'll cry. But he'll never feel as much as he used to because there'll always be a writer behind him, behind Harley Quinn, behind Wonder Woman, behind Catwoman, who is only there to sell. And that is why I believe that DC uses feminism and the idea of progress to manipulate audiences and fans. It's so interesting to think about how all these issues are all connected with one another. I still love DC. I will read comic books, I will watch movies, I will watch TV series, and I will play video games. Because the destruction of a few people does not degrade the quality of art as a whole. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in another life, or maybe another day. Who knows? Bye. Bye bye.